What is South Africa's new land law that Trump's find immoral? United States President Donald Trump has signed an executive order ending financial assistance to South Africa for its alleged unjust and immoral practices that include the enactment of new domestic land law and taking aggressive positions against the US and Israel at the International Court of Justice and reinvigorating its relations with Iran. On February 5, 2 days before Trump signed the order titled Addressing Egregious Actions of the Republic of South Africa, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio had declared he would not attend the G20 foreign ministers meeting at Johannesburg on February 2021 because South Africa was doing very bad things. The president's close aide, special government employee Elon Musk had attacked South Africa for its allegedly openly racist ownership laws and had earlier accused the government of President Cyril Ramaphosa of inaction in the killings of white farmers. United States President Donald Trump has signed an executive order ending financial assistance to South Africa for its alleged unjust and immoral practices that include enactment of new domestic land law and taking aggressive positions against the US and Israel. On February 5, 2 days before Trump signed order titled Addressing Egregious Actions of the Republic of South Africa, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has declared he would not attend the G20 foreign ministers meeting in Johannesburg. The president's close aide, special government employee Elon Musk, has attacked South Africa for its allegedly openly racist ownership laws and had earlier accused the government of President Cyril Cyril Ramaphosa of inaction in the killings of white farmers. On January 24, South Africa implemented the new Expropriation Act, which allows the state to seize land without compensation for public purposes or in public interest in certain circumstances. The law, which was discussed for 5 years, including public consultations, provides a legal framework for expropriation by the state in accordance with Section 25, Clause 2 of the South African Constitution. In most cases, the expropriating authority is required to negotiate with the property owner for an agreement before resorting to expropriation. A day after Trump's social media post, Ramaphosa clarified on X that Expropriation Act is not confiscation instrument but a constitutionally mandated legal process that ensures public access to land in an equitable and just manner as guided by the Constitution. Wrongs of Apartheid Era. The need for the new law, which repealed and replaced the Apartheid Era Expropriation Act of 1975, arose from the high skewed pattern of land ownership in South Africa, according to the research by Edward Lahave, an expert on Southern Africa at the University of Cork in Ireland. When racist minority rule over South Africa ended in 1994, about 86% of agricultural land was controlled by white people, who constituted 10.9% of the population. The needle has not moved much in 3 decades since. A land audit from 2017, most recent available, showed that white people still own 72% of agricultural land holdings. Today, whites are only about 7% of South Africa's 62 million population. On January 20, South Africa implemented a new Expropriation Act which allows the state to seize land without compensation for public purposes on public interest in certain circumstances. Under the 1975 agreement, the state was obligated to pay owners to seize their lands under the principles of willing seller, willing buyer, which delayed the process of land distribution. The willing seller, willing buyer principle allowed owners to sell to the highest bidder on the open market, effectively protecting their racial preferences. Lahib wrote in 2000 policy brief. Also, the willingness of the buyer alone was not enough, and while the state was free to intervene, it did not offer to act as an agent for the buyer. Lahib noted, from willing seller, willing buyer to people driven land reform program for land and agrarian studies 2005. Land reforms to address this situation, including new Expropriation Act, is part of South Africa's National Development Plan 2030, which aims to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality. The new law has faced resistance from the white-dominated Democratic Alliance Party, second largest in the ruling coalition. The DA has accused Ramaphosa African National Congress of not consulting its coalition partners on the law and has criticized it as being unconstitutional. Trump had taken the alleged violence against South Africans during his previous term as well in 2018 after Fox News ran a segment on the South African government's plan to redistribute land to black people who had been dispossessed from apartheid. Trump tweeted about farmers, farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers in that country. In his executive order issued on February 7, Trump mentioned the ethnic minority Afrikaner people, the descendants of Dutch settlers who first arrived in the mid 17th century, who first spoke a language called Afrikaans and have a significant rural landholding. However, the relationship between South Africa and US has been developing strains even before Trump returned to the Oval Office. Pretoria had been cultivating ties with Russia and Iran in the recent years, and in December 23 it instituted a case against Israel, the closest ally of the US in the ICJ, claiming genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Over the past week, Trump administration has all but shut down the US Agency for International Development, which coordinates the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief PEPFAR, the world's largest effort to combat HIV/AIDS. PEPFAR has been critical to South Africa's fight against the disease. Of the 320 million aid committed to country by the US in 24, more than 220 million went to support its HIV/AIDS program. In February 3 post on X, Ramaphosa wrote, with the exception of PEPFAR Act, which constitutes 17% of South Africa's HIV/AIDS program, there is no other funding that is received by South Africa from the United States. South Africa is estimated to have more than 9 million HIV positive people, more than any other country. The future of PEPFAR is uncertain. Private property and the state's right to acquire according to law. In his response to President Donald Trump, Truth Social post accusing South Africa of confiscating private land, President Cyril Ramaphosa posted on X, South Africa, like the United States of America and other countries, has always had expropriation laws that balance the need for public usage of land and protection of rights of property owners. Laws in South Africa, the United States, and India all have certain common roots in Europe. Laws in all these countries allowing compulsory land acquisition and expropriation by the state are also known as eminent domain. The expression can be traced to the legal treatise De Jure Belli AC Passes on the Law of War and Peace, written by Dutch scholar Hugo Grotius in 1625. Grotius explained the term do minimum eminence, supreme lordship in Latin, thus private property of subjects under the eminent domain of the state. In his response to President Donald Trump's Truth Social post accusing South Africa of confiscating private land, President Cyril Ramaphosa on X wrote, South Africa, like the United States and other countries, has always had expropriation laws that balance the need for public usage of land and protection of right of property owners. Eminent domain all have common roots in Europe. Laws in all these countries allow compulsory land acquisition and expropriation by the state, also known as eminent domain. The expression can be traced to the legal treatise De Jure Belli ac Passes on the law of war and peace, written by Dutch scholar, the property of subjects under the eminent domain of the state, so that the state or he who acts for it may use and even alienate and destroy such property, not only in the case of extreme necessity, but for even ends of public utility. This concept traveled with the European colonists as and was eventually codified into the written laws that such as the Land Acquisition Act 1894 and in India an Expropriation Act 1975 in South Africa. The Magna Carta 1215 of King John of England recognized for the first time that the king was not above the law, granted civil rights to English people, and decreed that citizens' right to hold property could not be taken away except by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. The requirement that land can be acquired through due process of law influenced property rights in the former colonies. In the US Fifth Amendment stated that no person shall be deprived of their property without due process of law, and that no private property shall be taken for public use without just compensation. Section 25 of the South African Constitution says no one may be deprived of the property except in terms of law of general application, and no law may permit arbitrary deprivation of property. It clarifies that property can only be legally acquired if it is for a public purpose or for the public interest and the landowner is compensated. The Constitution of India is initially recognized the right to own property as the fundamental right under Article 19, which guaranteed all citizens the right to acquire, hold, and dispose of property. In addition, under Article 31, property could not be taken possession of or acquired for public purposes unless the law provides for compensation for the property taken possession or of or acquired. In 1978, these rights were removed from the Fundamental Rights Chapter. Article 300A was subsequently introduced, which said no person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. The constitution of all three countries previously recognized that governments must only acquire private property when it serves public use or purpose, and landowners must be compensated. How mice learns to suppress fear. Implications of this finding. A team of scientists has determined how the brain of the mouse overcomes instinctive fear. According to the findings of the new study, the findings can have implications for developing treatments to benefit people who struggle with fear related disorders, including phobias, anxieties, and PTSD. There are two regions in the brain that work together to learn to suppress responses to perceived threats that proved harmless over time, the analysis has revealed. The study overwriting an instinct, visual cortex instructs learning to suppress fear responses, was published in journal Science. Sarah Medeiros, a neuroscientist at University College London, wrote, "We have uncovered the mechanism by which the brain through experience can understand which potential instinctive dangers are actually not a danger." Initially, the mice, in a laboratory experiment, the researchers exposed 100 mice to a repeated visual threat that proved harmless over time, in this case, expanding dark circle that imitated a swooping bird. To reach the mice that the dark circle was not dangerous, the researchers introduced a barrier to prevent the mice from hiding. Initially, the mice ran for shelter when the ominous shadow of the bird appeared, as the classic instinctive fear response kicked in. But after 30 to 50 simulated swoop, the scientists observed something. Mice came to realize that the threat was harmless and learned to suppress their instinct. Once that happened, the mice stopped paying attention to the dark circle and continued to forage and explore as usual. Researchers also inserted silicon probes into the brains of mice and used them to track mammals' neural mechanisms as they learned to suppress their instinctive fear. According to the study, two brain areas were involved in helping the mice learn to distinguish the lack of threat. One was visual cortex, which processes visual information. The region played a role in learning to suppress fear reaction. The other was ventrolateral geniculate nucleus, where the brain store memories to disregard instinctive fears. The area is located between neocortex, which detects a threat, and brainstem, which activates the brain's instinctive response. This is for the first time that scientists have realized that VLGN plays a role in recalling learned behavior. Single engine, double engine Delhi voters have brought the BJP's pitch that only its double engine Sarkar can deliver progress. Here's a status using data. States, both BJP and non-BJP, ruled compared on 11 broad parameters. Delhi has voted emphatically for the so-called double-engine government, handing the BJP power in the state as well. To extend the metaphor, they have alighted from the Aam Aadmi Party's single engine that had pulled Delhi for almost the entire period of India's rule at the center. How did the Aam Aadmi Party's single engine perform during the past decade, especially compared to with states that were powered as BJP's double engine, as also other states in the country with single engine governments? The table makes the comparison using selected variables ranging from economic performance to the fiscal health of the government and welfare of the state's resident. The states have been chosen in a way that the table covers to the extent possible both the political spectrum and geographical span of the country. Gujarat and Haryana have had the BJP double engine governments from 2014 through 2025. Haryana provides an interesting contrast with the single engine Delhi because it is contiguous to national capital and many voters divide their lives and work between the two states. West Bengal under Mamata Banerjee has remained solidly single engine throughout this period, resisting the powerful political push from the BJP. Bihar has been a state with uniquely mixed record in this period, with Nitish Kumar has been in charge as chief minister throughout when Jitan Ram Manjhi was chief minister. Barring the 9 month period when Jitan Ram Manjhi was the chief minister, the BJP has been in and out of the government out of 2014-17, in from 2017-22, out again from 22-24, and back in the government last year. Tamil Nadu provides an altogether different type of contrast. It is a state where the BJP has not been in direct contention for power in any way during the last past decade. Real per capita economic output among the states, Delhi performed the worst. Per capita state output size of the economy after taking the population into account grew at just 3.2% annually between 2014 and 24. By contrast, with annual CAGR compounded annual growth rate of 6.6%, double engine Gujarat grew more than twice as fast. West Bengal also lagged behind on growth rate. Increase in general price level due to inflation. The rate of inflation shows how much the general prices represents. Over this metric, app's record was the best in Delhi. The general price level went up by 51% over the past decade. That is, basket of goods that cost rupees 100 in 2014 cost 151 in 24. This rate is much lower than the national average of 64%. Tamil Nadu experienced the highest cumulative inflation. This is the percentage of people who are actively seeking a job and not getting one. The national average was 51 unemployed per 100. Delhi stood at 20, much lower than the national average, and the lowest in this group of states. Bengal was at 33. Gujarat did almost as well as Delhi. Bihar has the highest urban unemployment. Urban employment rate often in India the number of people looking for job falls, such as during COVID-19 lockdown, or simply because people are exhausted with repeated failures and just stop looking. As such, more than the unemployment rate, it is the employment rate that captures the labor stress. Rate is also called the worker population ratio, or the percentage of workers in the population. The higher the rate, the better. Delhi's employment rate was lower than the national average and better than only Bihar among these states. But West Bengal, engine state, was ahead of everyone, including double engine Gujarat. Budget expenditure on roads and bridges since 2014, more since 2019, the center has focused ramping up physical infrastructure in the form of roads and bridges, hoping that these investments will improve the productive capacity of the country. While Delhi matched the national average of all states and UTs, Gujarat led the expenditure on this count as a percentage of the state budget. Haryana and West Bengal lagged far behind. Budget expenditure on education. Governments in India generally do not spend enough on education and health. Delhi under AAP has been on an outlier. Spending on education as a percentage of total was 21% in 23, much more than the national average of 113% and double that of double engine Haryana. Budget expenditure on health and family welfare. AAPS Delhi led health too, with 12% of its total expenditure compared to the national average of just 5.6%. Government's borrowing gross fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit refers to the amount the money a state government has to borrow to meet the gap between its expenses and income. Prudential norms require fiscal deficit to be within 3% of state's GDP. Delhi fiscal deficit was just 0.7%, and Gujarat and Haryana too were within prudential norms. Government's outstanding liabilities. While fiscal deficits show the borrowing for one particular year, the outstanding liabilities refer to the debt accumulated by the states from borrowings in the past. On this count, AAPS Delhi did way better than the rest of this pack. Per capita availability of electricity. This is a good way to capture improvement in state's economy. Like per capita real GDP, AAP ruled Delhi saw fairly feeble year-on-year growth CAGR of 2.9% over the past decade. Bihar grew at almost four times that pace. Gujarat started the decade behind Delhi, 1465 kilowatt hour to Delhi's 1599, but finished far ahead, 2400 kilowatt hour to Delhi's 2100 kilowatt hour. The RBI used Niti Aayog's 2023 update on multidimensional poverty index along with National Family Health Survey data to provide the headcount of poverty in each state. Poverty ratio has declined across the board. Delhi, which has 4.4% poverty in 2015-16, had brought it down to 3.4%, behind only Tamil Nadu. Where AAP's single engine raced ahead, the outgoing government in Delhi established a new benchmark in terms of budgetary spending on education, including sports and arts and health, while still being the most fiscally responsible government. It was the most effective in containing inflation, which hits the common man's hardest. Where AAP lagged behind on the overall pace of economic output, spending on physical infrastructure and improving the availability of electricity, AAP's single engine appears to have run out of steam according to the data. The new Aam Aadmi Aap defeat shows BJP has successfully managed to recast the middle class as the ordinary Delhi citizen. The powerful centre hobbled up, but its decline has happened in circumstances of its own making. BJP needs to build on its win. Dhaka must act. Vandalism targeting homes of Mujib and Awami League leaders is disquieting. Yunus government needs to restore calm. In culture that equates productivity with purpose, what happens when jobs vanish? AAP's rule was dominated by PR stunts and excuses. BJP's promise of governance has won its capital. What was needed was more public expenditure, not tax cuts for middle class. Vandalism targeting homes of Mujib and Awami leaders is disquieting. Yunus government needs to restore calm. 6 months after Sheikh Hasina's ouster from power in Bangladesh and arrival in India after student-led protest, protesters reportedly demolished the homes of Awami League leaders and faced murals of Banga Bandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in 20-odd districts of February 5. The unrest began with a call for bulldozer procession towards Mujib's residence, a symbol of 1971 liberation. At Dhaka Road, at least 50 murals of Mujib and his family were destroyed, 8 Awami League offices set on fire. As Bangladesh's founding leader and first president, Mujib remains a revered figure for many. If peace and reconciliation are the Muhammad Yunus led government's objectives, the destruction of Mujib's home risks alienating segments of the population who might otherwise be sympathetic towards the current dispensation. The interim government's equivocation on the violence it has all but blamed Sheikh Hasina for it is disturbing. A change of regime cannot erase a country's history or the figures that stand tall. Sheikh Hasina has condoned the February 5 violence, saying that history cannot be wiped out. New Delhi too has reacted strongly, with the Ministry of External Affairs calling the incident regrettable. Diplomatic tensions have escalated as Bangladesh summoned India's acting High Commissioner to formally protest Hasina's fabricated and provocative remarks. Dhaka's reaction is unwarranted. India and Bangladesh should aim to insulate the bilateral relationship from ups and downs of short term politics. Not to make it part of a partisan agendas, economic, strategic, and cultural ties between the two countries need to be deepened for the benefit of the people on both sides of the border. The interim government in Dhaka must also remember that country's liberation in 1971 is deeply tied to both Mujib and India. After Mujib's assassination in a military coup, the only survivors, Hasina and her sister Sheikh Rehana, found refuge in India. The political milieu in post Hasina Bangladesh is yet to firm up. Free and fair elections in the near future are imperative. Hasina Mahfouz Alam, a key advisor to the Yunus, recently said the Awami League would not be allowed to contest elections. Such statements do not bode well. Will the interim government enable rogue elements to sow chaos under the guise of dismantling symbols of fascism? Is the question. 2 days after the attacks, Yunus urged calm and spoke the need to prevent further attacks on properties linked to Hasina's family and Awami League leaders. His words must be accompanied by concrete action on ground. The rule of law must be upheld, and Yunus' stature as Nobel laureate and development pioneer allows him to rise above political heat and work for the long-term interest of the country. In the early months of 25, the specter of mass layoffs has returned with a vengeance, casting a long shadow over professionals who had begun it to believe in a post pandemic era of stability. Big tech, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and even Google has resumed cost cutting measures, reversing the decline in layoffs seen in 2024. The message is clear: corporate austerity is back, and with it, the erosion of work as a stable identity. For decades, we were defined by our jobs. We introduced ourselves by our professions, structured our lives around promotions and milestones, and measured success through salaries and titles. The professional arc, entry level grid, mid career peak, retirement provided not just financial security but existential certainty. Now that story is fraying. The old narrative of linear progression has given way to an era of precarity, where layoffs can be abrupt and seemingly arbitrary, and even high performers are not spared. In the shifting sands of the global economy, multiple factors drive this instability. The return of Donald Trump in the White House is already reshaping Silicon Valley. Tech leaders worry of regulatory scrutiny and eager to align with the new administration's priorities are cutting jobs in pursuit of leanness and efficiency. Meta's recent layoffs affecting 5% of workforce have been justified. At the same time, artificial intelligence looms both as a disruptor and a paradox. AI, particularly general purpose systems like ChatGPT, threaten to displace millions of jobs but also promise to create new roles. The International AI Safety Report suggests that advanced economies 60% of the jobs are vulnerable to automation. Meanwhile, companies like DeepSeek have demonstrated that billion-dollar R&D budgets are not prerequisites for AI breakthroughs, raising questions about the tech industry's hiring practices. If innovation can be achieved with a handful of fresh PhD graduates, what does that mean for the legions of experienced engineers once deemed indispensable? The unraveling is economic but also psychological. Work was always more than a paycheck, it was a structure, a way to locate oneself in the world. Now that structure is crumbling. The educated, unemployed, overqualified, and underemployed, the knowledge workers staring blankly at screens. These are not abstractions, they are people in apartments that they can no longer afford. Calculating how many more months the severance will last. They are scrolling job listings, toggling between resumes that feel less like records of achievement and more like relics from a life that no longer exists. In a culture that equates productivity with purpose, what does happen when jobs disappear? These are, of course, alternatives. Some leave cities, sublet their apartments, move back in with parents. Some take contract work with no benefits, no guarantees beyond the next month. Other monetize hobbies, set up digital storefronts, sell print ceramics, essays, anything that might resemble a livelihood. They start vlogs, build following, sell courses on how to build following. They unbox PR packages, test products that may or may not actually use. They become the product. The old framework has gone are gone, but the new ones have yet to take shape. The question is no longer just how to make a living, but how to construct a life. What is ambition without an audience? The months ahead will bring more layoffs, more stability, more careful budgeting, more people weighing necessities against indulgences, but also perhaps a reckoning. The understanding that work was never enough, not really, and that something else must take its place. What that it remains, what that is remains uncertain. Maybe it is creative, maybe it is communal, maybe it is nothing that fits neatly into a LinkedIn update, but in the space where careers once were, something quieter, more elemental might emerge, a different kind of life, a different way forward. Delhi gives you power and expects you to deliver. That means making friends with adversary Sheila Dikshit was adept at that art, Arvind Kejriwal a failure. Kenneth M. Dumberston, Ronald Reagan's White House chief of staff, once said that election campaigning is trying to destroy your opponents while governing is making friends with them. Arvind Kejriwal never got the difference, and the BJP made hay while the sun shone. The results are clear as day. Light on Saturday afternoon as the Kejriwal-led Aam Aadmi Party was defeated decisively. In many years, this is a quintessential Delhi election. Very Delhi behavior. Delhi has many outsiders like me who have made the city their home in the last 3 decades can attest is a very transactional city. Here, there is always give and take. There are certain brutal selfishness that city that rubs off on its residents. Residents define and revel in the transactionalism that is the DNA of the city. This transactionalism behavior runs through its business, trade, government, and even RWAs. Nobody gives you anything for free. In this city of power, you need to deliver the goods, perform or perish is the mantra. In some ways, New Delhi is transactional as brutal as New York. The city rewards those who perform. In the 2.5 decades that I have lived in Delhi, this has defined the city's politics. Back then, Delhi government was under Sheila Dikshit. The numero uno in the Delhi Congress at the time, other leaders would vie for attention but were kept in check by the Congress High Command. She performed and was rewarded. Delhi is very clear headed as well. Although she came to power in 98, the first election she was on the record of her performance was in 2003. She got 47 seats at that time. This is almost close to BJP's tally in 2025. That election was solely on her performance of infrastructure buildings in the city, and between 98 to 2004, she managed the art of governance by making friends with opponents. The BJP led NDA government under Atal Bihari Vajpayee in power at the center. Despite strong ideological differences, she managed to negotiate with adversaries. She sat down with Oil and Gas Minister Ram Naik to implement the transition of Delhi's entire public transport fleet from diesel to CNG. She did the same with Power Minister Suresh Prabhu and later Anant Gite when it came to privatization of Delhi's power distribution system. On Delhi's urban infrastructure, roads, flyovers, metros, she didn't hesitate to sit down with the NDA's four urban development ministers over 5 years: Jagmohan, Anant Kumar B. Khanduri, and of course, there were Lieutenant Governors Vijay Kapoor, Tejendra Khanda, and BL Joshi, who were no pushovers. She met with them at least once a week and negotiated. Delhi, having won the bid to host the Commonwealth Games, needed all help to build the requisite civic infrastructure by 2010. And Dikshit, with help of the BJP first and Congress led UPA from 2004, was able to deliver on most projects. To many of us who covered that period, the challenges came more from the Congress ministers and leaders at the center. She was skillful in persuading adversaries and getting things done. And 10 years in power, Delhi rewarded her in 2008 again. In the run up to the Commonwealth Games, although Congress's tally was diminished, the BJP's in those years were a pale shadow to Delhi Congress. The BJP in Delhi was led by Harsh Vardhan, who later became Health Minister, and in Vidhan Sabha it was led by Jagdish Mukhi, who later became Governor of Assam. Delhi's reason to keep Dikshit in power was also rooted in her responsiveness to the city's problem. Most of the time, when there were reports and stories about potholed roads or overflowing garbage dumps, she or her cabinet ministers were quick to resolve them. Sometimes within hours, if not days, but as Commonwealth Games wrapped up and stories of profligacy and corruption came out, Anna Hazare movement, shepherded by activist Arvind Kejriwal, metamorphosed into an opposition party, the AAP. After three terms, Dixit was defeated, and AAP, after 49 days stint in 2013-14, won the elections in 2015. The city wanted more and better. Its transactionalism was again and on full display as Kejriwal's AAP got an unthinkable number and mandate 67 out of 70. Congress was reduced to zero. Kejriwal was not given just the mandate, it was the trust that Delhi reposed in him. But people have here saw his potential to deliver. In 10 years, he worked on education and did reach out to the city's poor and middle class, but frittered away his chances slowly and steadily. The profligacy in renovating the chief minister's residence, a reasonably modest one occupied by the Delhi Assembly Speaker, saw the Chaudhry Prem Singh back in the day turned away many avowed supporters and sympathizers. Continuing his confrontational and agitational politics over the last decade, Delhi saw him in runnings with the powerful BJP led central government and his nominee Lieutenant Governor. He was unable to negotiate with the adversary for the betterment of the city. The BJP kept chipping away at the image of Kejriwal, who had promised Delhi better governance. City's infrastructure suffered, and its people, who had once given him brute majority of 98 and 88%, ran out of patience. The voter made her call after giving him chances for not one but two terms. Now the BJP enters the fray with almost the same number of seats as Sheila Dikshit won, and AAP has a tally of around the same number of seats as the BJP back then. The BJP has all the cards with itself with a cooperative center for the coming 4.5 years as it faces the AAP, which has a agitation in its DNA. The BJP has no excuses. It has to offer an alternative to the AAP's governance style. This refers to editorial for growth's sake. With rate cut, RBI has sent a clear signal. It wants to boost lending, stimulate consumer demand, and nurture investment. By lowering the borrowing cost, RBI wants businesses to expand. It is trying to boost consumption to help economic growth. Now, banks will be happy to help extend credit more freely, but they need to be wary of what they have witnessed with their microfinance and unsecured loan portfolio in the recent months. The real estate sector and the SMEs will breathe a sigh of relief, and the individual borrowers should see a reduction in their EMIs. With more money in their pockets coupled with recent income tax cuts, this is a positive environment for the consumption boom. The RBI will pray that while it did its best to spur economic growth, inflation should not play spoilsport. This refers to the editorial journey's end. Globemaster aircraft landed a US military C-17 Globemaster aircraft landed in Punjab's Amritsar with 104 Indians. This is the first instance of the US using a military aircraft for such deportations, reflecting a new administration's efforts to expedite the removal of illegal migrants. This is not the first time. Between 2009 and Jan 25, the US sent back nearly 15,000 Indian nationals. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar told Rajya Sabha that the deportation is not a new phenomenon and there has been standard operating procedure in place. On humanitarian grounds, the chaining and handcuffing of helpless captives, completely restricting the deportees, and even the access to the washroom must put to shame all those responsible for the infraction of our citizens' right to dignity. Their crime, they were looking for a better life. They did it illegally, but that does not make them criminals who need to be treated worse than animals. There are no jobs at home. People are spending lakhs of rupees for overseas employment. What is happening in the Amritkal? This refers to the editorial journeys, and everyone in the country should feel humiliated by the treatment meted out to the nationals who were deported from the United States. However, no discussion seems to be taking place on how to dispel the circumstances that force these people to take such a huge risk. Surrey University to open branch and give city's seventh foreign campus in India. Tirupati led to adulteration CBI arrest for. Cop pulls plug on Ed Sheeran's surprise Bengaluru street show. Had permission to busk singer. CSR fund scam. Kerala High Court ex-judge booked President Murmu to visit Mahakam today. Punjab youth dies while traveling to US illegally. Tariff on top 30 items imported from US between 0 to 7.5% only. Bifurcating one of highest revenue generating zones of railways, what will change? Small players making a big comeback in FMCG. Government looking up procedural easing to further promote FDI. Not interested in acquiring TikTok, says Elon Musk. Saudi's 63 billion giga project sees interest from Indian investors. Trump says he has spoken to Putin about ending Ukraine war. Saudi Qatar reject Israel's Netanyahu's remark on displacing Palestinians. Sam Nujoma, Namibia's fiery freedom fighter, dies at 95. Pollution in Mumbai can't be a permanent problem. There has to be a solution despite the construction. For the past few years, the city has witnessed a new but serious problem of air pollution. How are you handling it? It starts post monsoon, immediately after the October heat is over. Experts say it is a weather related phenomena and localized in nature during this time. The density of air is inversely related to the temperature. Once temperature goes down, density increases and air particles remain in the air. This is a global phenomena. Locally, dust from public and private works and vehicular fuel worsens conditions. So how do we control these? You cannot stop vehicles. You can check their PUCs, pollution under control certificates. Try to have efficient traffic flow system and develop public transport. As far as construction is concerned, we try to stop activities in few pockets, but pollution is not pocket wise. Then there is the impact of geography in the Mumbai metropolitan region. For instance, if there is crushing in New Navi Mumbai, it will affect Mumbai. If there is something here, it will impact. Its impact will be felt in Vasai. We now have 32 AQI monitoring stations, of which 28 are functioning, run by BMC, IIT Bombay, and MPCB, which give hourly updates. But again, the readings are done in a 500-meter area. Right now, we are devising policies based on those readings. We carry our local level interventions like watering roads, clearing debris, mist fogging, and stopping trenches. For construction work, there are regulations like create creating green barriers, but rules aren't followed. Pradeep Acharya, half of Mumbai is dug up. Do you think pollution is temporary or permanent problem? No problem is permanent. There is has to be a solution. Once most of the ongoing concessions concretization for public works is done, pollution will go down on its own. However, even if public works are over in 2 years, private redevelopment work will continue. Whenever we give our contracts, there has to be provision of certain penalty for certain defaults. Some of the old contracts don't have strict penalty clauses. For example, we have imposed heavy duty per day for concretization. Second, how do you impose a penalty and collect it? For that, we have to activate our machinery, issue stop work notices. We stopped work in Borivali and Baikula area for more than 3 weeks. The air quality improved here. Now Baikula has three wards. Yes, you are not preoccupied by smaller issues. You are exposed to 250 cooperators 24/7, but everything has a flip side too. On a day-to-day basis, you get a breather and are able to concentrate on your priorities. On the same time, not getting proper feedback is an issue. Mumbai is not a very walker-friendly city. South Mumbai has lots of footpath and good tree cover, but elsewhere you find them in patches. Rohit's Katak attack. Skipper returns to century-hitting ways, mutes critics and helps win second ODI. Chorus growing Manipur CM finally quits assembly on hold, puts in his papers after returning from New Delhi where he met Shah Nadda. Why now dissent within? Opposition no threat, probe pleads Supreme Court, dip in ratings. After 21 months of opposition from Kukizo leaders, waning popularity in the Methi majority in Imphal Valley calls for resignation from the opposition, withdrawal of support of a key NDA partner. It was pressure from unhappy colleagues in the valley that finally led to N. Biren Singh's resignation as Manipur Chief Minister on Sunday. Kukizo groups and 10 MLAs from the community, these include 7 BJP MLAs, 2 of them ministers, have held Singh responsible for ethnic conflict in the state, which began on May 3, 2023. Rumblings within his own ranks began to grow loud last year and have intensified BJP MLAs from the valley. Why Kejriwal lost? Pollution, lack of drinking water, behind voter anger, saw two-thirds saw as AAP as corrupt. At Mahakumbh, tiny bundles of joy and babies born in hospitals for pilgrims. The pollution, lack of drinking water behind voter anger. The governor issued a notification nixing the assembly session for the time being by declaring that January order summoning the House null and void. Earlier, the Congress had threatened to bring a no confidence motion against Singh and his government during the assembly session. In the Manipur House of 60 assembly elections, at the Manipur House of 60, assembly elections are not due until 2027. At the current strength of 59 following the death last month. The current strength is 59. Of the 59 legislatures, 37 are from BJP, 6 are from NPP, 5 are from NPF, 5 are from Congress, 2 from Kuki People's Alliance, 1 from JDU, and 3 independents. Both KPA and NPP, which were part of the government, have withdrawn support after the violence. At least 2 NPP MLAs continue to back Biren Singh even after the party formally withdrew its support. Singh had left for New Delhi, his second trip to the national capital this week. According to sources, Union Home Minister Amit Shah held almost 2 hour meeting on Sunday. In evening, Singh, Patra and other senior Manipur BJP leaders including Manipur BJP leader A. Sharda Devi and cabinet ministers Bishwajit Singh submitted his resignation. His resignation came amid renewed political churn in Manipur before the assembly session, which was scheduled to start on Monday. The Indian Express has reported that several BJP MLAs from Manipur who has been upset with Biren Singh's leadership and the party-led centre's management of the Manipur crisis had again started putting pressure on the party's leadership. Dissident BJP MLAs from the Manipur Indian Express spoke to had suggested that they were gearing to take a big and unprecedented step in the upcoming assembly election by supporting a no confidence motion the Congress has said it was likely to introduce in the assembly. The Congress was all set to move a no confidence motion against the Chief Minister and the Council of Ministers in the Manipur Assembly tomorrow. Sensing the climate, Manipur CM has just resigned. A source who was present with Singh while he submitted the resignation letter indicated that assembly was likely to be suspended animation for a while. In a resignation letter, Singh emphasized 5 points as requests to the central government through the governor. These include maintaining territorial integrity of the state, crack down on illegal migrants, continuing the fight against drugs and narco-terrorism, continuation of revised free movement regime with the application of biometric checks, and construction of Indo-Myanmar border, all the issues which he pressed on through the course of chief ministership. The Congress leader and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi targeted the prime minister, saying he allowed him to continue despite the violence, loss of life and destruction of the idea of India in Manipur. In a post on X, Gandhi said the resignation of CM Bireng Singh shows that mounting public pressure, a Supreme Court investigation, and the no confidence motion by the Congress have forced a reckoning. The most urgent priority is to restore peace in the state and work to heal the wounds of the people of Manipur. PM Modi must visit Manipur at once, listen to the people, and finally explain this plan to bring people back normalcy. He resigned because he was running a minority government. He didn't have the support from his own MLAs. Biren Singh has destroyed the state, Chandakar said. The turning point appeared to be the budget session, with their appeals for a leadership change going ahead. Dissident MLAs prepared to take an unprecedented and drastic move and back a no confidence motion that the Congress said it was likely to move. Free Bijli Pani Mahila Samman Yojana AAP's welfare formula fails to take off this election. PM heads to France today, announcement on civil nuclear cooperation on the cards. How Chhattisgarh forces have made gains against the Maoist political will network of launch pads. Aero India begins today, Rajnath says new strength, new India strength. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.